What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the No Name Podcast. It is your boy Young Rich back again with another episode. And today we're going to be discussing the NFL offseason as it has already began. It has started. Possible trades coming up, trade candidates, free agent signings that can help improve your roster, your team's roster this offseason, head coaching moves. We're going to be rating our top 10 quarterback prospects going into the NFL draft this year, and we're going to be discussing and breaking down the NBA All-Star Weekend this past weekend in Indiana. It was a bit historical, but also a bit, not a great watch if you're not a dedicated NBA fan. So with that being said, let's get straight into our episode today. First things first, all right, it's got to that time where, it's that in the discussion where now you see athletes prepare for the NFL draft, the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. You have scouts and all these people watching film and breaking down quarterbacks and receivers and every single position to try to find hidden gems and the best players in the draft. So with that being said, we're going to get into our top quarterback rankings of the 2024 NFL draft. Okay, it's going up to about 7 to 8 names. We're really not going to get deep into it because I have not watched enough film of all the late sleepers and all the late round picks who are supposed to get out there. And we're going to go from top down here, all right? And with the number one overall pick, the number one quarterback ranking, it is undisputably Caleb Williams, all right? Caleb Williams, 3,633 yards, 30-5 TD interception ratio, 11 rushing touchdowns on the year, right? And he also did miss a couple games, including the bowl game. And again, this is just one of the most phenomenal prospects we've seen in a quarterback in years. I mean, some of the stuff he does on film and on the field is just out of this world. I mean, it's very Mahomes-esque in a way, right? And again, I mean, we see it a lot of days. You see QBs who, when they get frantic and they can't sit in the pocket, they like to bail out and use their feet. And he's just absolutely the complete opposite. I mean, we see a lot of NFL quarterbacks nowadays bail the pocket just a little bit too soon, scared to step into throws and take shots to the chin, but he is just naturally comfortable doing that. He's a natural leader. He just, handles that offense so well, right? And obviously we understand how great he is. His Heisman Trophy season last year, right? The numbers were off the charts. The arm, the throws, the amount of angles he can throw the football that just not many quarterbacks really can, right? And obviously, he had a phenomenal season last year. Playing in the Pac-12 championship on one leg was just the actual beauty of what he's truly capable of and how dedicated he is to winning football games. But listen, one of the biggest things that I kind of had to put into I had to just keep looking and thinking about it and watching more film and rewatching old USC games, because obviously being a USC fan, I watched every single game. But the receivers that he played with was just, I mean, they were underwhelming, to put it in that sense. Obviously, we had players, we had weapons, being the University of Southern California, you have weapons, you have people that want to go there with NAI deal, especially getting involved, right? Brendan Rice, a guy who was underwhelming at times. He definitely was a good receiver. I wouldn't say he was great. I wouldn't say he was phenomenal. He definitely let me down on a couple one-on-one opportunities that I would have liked him to make up, come down with early in the year. And then you had Taj Washington, who was a great receiver. I think was one of our better weapons this year. Only short side of that is that he is 5'9", 5'10", right? So he's very undersized, but he is a very quick receiver and just knows how to get open when you get him the ball, and he just makes plays with it. And obviously Dorian Singer, right, which was supposed to be someone who was supposed to come into this offense and just flourish, right, coming from Arizona. But again, he for the most part played with underwhelming pieces. Like, what he's done with this team was just he elevated everybody. He was the ceiling raiser, the floor raiser. He came into this system, came into this offense, and just made everybody better. Everybody was an elite quarterback. Everybody became better. We became an elite offense, high level offense. Obviously, we had the defense on the other side to really get some efficient results. But again, I think undoubtedly he is going to be the face of a franchise. It just matters what franchise is going to trade up for him, really. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the discussion, is who's going to trade up to take him at 1. Is Chicago going to trade down and get somebody at 2 or 3 or however it does play out. But the number 2 quarterback, I got to say, it's got to go to Jayden Daniels. He just played a phenomenal year this year. 3,812 yards, passing yards, 40-4 TD interception ratio, 1,134 yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns on the ground. And listen, yes, they weren't an elite team. They were a very competitive team, an elite offense. 3 losses, unfortunately, so you didn't get to see them in the playoffs or in an SEC championship game. But this team was just phenomenal all year long, and it all played through Jayden Daniels. And the more I watch his film, the more I'm impressed by his arm. I mean, he does not have the strongest arm, but when you watch him go in there and go through his progressions and make throws, timely, accurate throws. And one of the biggest things that I've seen from Jaden McDaniels compared to some of these other quarterbacks we want to talk about is the fact that you've seen him throw every single route on the route tree. And one of the biggest things that really impresses me is his anticipation and timing on these routes, right? He knows he doesn't have the strongest arm like Caleb Williams, like the Drake May, and so he's more than capable of throwing a perfectly timed route, getting the ball out there before the receivers are getting out of their break, and it just makes him a whole lot tougher to stop, right? And you add the fact that he's not scared to take a hit. You've seen him stand in there and stay calm under pressure, and he is just the second best complete quarterback in my eyes with what he's capable of doing. And you add that to his ability to run the ball, which has just been phenomenal this year. Again, 1,100 yards. I've heard some people say Jalen Hurts 2.0, but to me, this just seems like more of a Justin Fields type guy who is capable of throwing the football effectively, right? Because this is kind of what you've seen from Justin Fields in college, his ability to throw the ball, his ability to run, and now you put it together, and this is just yes, obviously he's definitely smaller frame than Justin Fields, but I mean, he has the arm talent, he has the leg, he has the mechanics, he has the footwork, and he's got the legs to add on to that, to a more offensive friendly league this year. Dual threat quarterbacks are more there's more requests for dual threat quarterbacks, so it just fills right into what teams are looking for. And then for number 3, I mean, right here, I'm going to go with Drake May. I mean, I know a lot of people want to talk about Michael Penix and the phenomenal year he's had, but the only issue with Michael Penix is that Michael Penix just sometimes just didn't wow me throwing the football, right? And him and Drake May, I mean, you could argue how you want to do it, whether you want to go 3-4, 4-3, or anything other than from 2 to 4. You could really argue, and it's really preference on what you're looking for in a quarterback and what you like in a quarterback. I mean, you can go either way, and I wouldn't be mad with you, right? But again, Michael Penix just had some moments where he just didn't look as fine-tuned as you might like to see, right? And again, that's another one of those teams that was so heavy relying on the offense that if the defense didn't show up, it was the game, was a shootout. And then obviously Drake May, listen, I was very skeptical of him throughout these past 2 years. Obviously his sophomore season was the best season for him and really what gained him all this hype. But listen, the more I watch Drake May, the more I see what is there, right? He has a natural flick of the wrist, a beautiful throwing motion, and just a strong arm that can make all these deep throws. And I do see his ability to break down defenses and to read defenses, right? Which is something that a lot of college quarterbacks can get away without doing as effectively due to the scheme of the offense, the playmakers you have, right? So, someone like Tua Tagovailoa, who looks great in college, and then you go to the NFL, and then the processing of plays is not as elite as you might have thought, right? So he definitely impressed me with his ability to read defenses and to go through progressions and to make throws. And he's sneakishly athletic. I mean, 6'5", he's not obviously crazy athletic, but he is sneakily athletic to where he can get away with some things with your feet. And again, I mean, he didn't have the most team success, but again, it was North Carolina at the end of the day. So again, I think anything from 2 to 4 for those three guys are just, you can go either ways and it's going to be okay. And then here's where we get to the JJ McCarthy, or, where JJ McCarthy should be in this rankings as the fifth best quarterback in this draft, right? And again, I'm just not sold on JJ McCarthy. Like when I was seeing all these mock drafts of people saying JJ McCarthy was going to go to the Raiders, he was going to go in the first round, the first 10 picks, I was losing my mind, right? Just because there's not enough from seeing from him to say that I am going to risk not only a first round pick on you, but a franchise type of move, right? To bring in a franchise guy, a future franchise guy. Because listen, what he did all year, he won a national championship, but what he did all year was just rely on a dominant run game, the best rushing game in college football, right? And then you had a great defense to that, and JJ McCarthy did not wow me, right? And then in the moments when you needed him to make plays, he had one game-winning drive that was notable in his entire career that I've paid attention to, which is against Alabama, right? When you needed it most, so kudos to him. But listen, 2,991 yards, passing yards, 22 to 4 passing touchdowns to interception ratio. And again, he just does not wow me. He's not someone who just looks impressive. I mean, I see the upside, but again, he's more of like a, what you're going to get type guy in the NFL. You know he's going to be able to use play action to his advantage. He wants to run the ball. He's sneakily, again, he's another athletic guy for his size and what he's doing, but his style of offense can transition into some of these teams in the league, in the NFL today. The Kyle Shanahan type offense, the Raiders offense, last year when we were so run dominant and then we just need the quarterback to make a couple throws. Again, you can add them into a lot of this Pittsburgh Steelers, a team who wants to run the ball, relies on their great defensive play, and you put a quarterback in there, and he can make some plays. You don't need to make all the plays in the world, just some plays when it's needed, right? So again, and then you have Spencer Rattler and Bo Nix. I mean, Spencer Rattler, again, shouldn't even be in the discussion. It's crazy to think he's even in the discussion for like the top 10 quarterback rankings, but again, it can go either way. He's going to be a late round, day 3 pick, of course, but Bo Nix, I mean, listen, I know his numbers scream, Heisman, great player, one of the best, a top quarterback in the country, but again, I am not wowed with him. 4,500 passing yards, 45 to 3 touchdown interception ratio, 6 rushing touchdowns, and again, I mean, he just is another Tim Tebow type Heisman quarterback, phenomenal season, did great things in college football. He won in college football, nothing crazy, right? But he was winning games in his conference. He was competing in the Pac-12. They could never win the big game, but that's been Oregon. I mean, it's been Oregon their entire length of the university's been around. But again, he doesn't wow you throwing the football. He's very, one-sided, one-dimensional in this football aspect. Like, I don't see him make a lot of NFL type throws. I don't see him make a lot of tough throws. A lot of the stuff is just based on getting the ball out quick and letting his athletes make plays. I mean, and playing alongside Troy Franklin, who was in the conversation for the Biletnikoff list previous year, right? He's mock drafted to go late first round, maybe early second, but I mean, he dominated the Pac-12. He had an elite running back in Bucky Irving. I mean, he had a solid defense. So I think he definitely played solid football, but again, it just reminds me a lot of Tim Tebow, a big body quarterback. Not the greatest of throwing mechanics. He has a strong arm. He relies a lot on his feet and his athletic ability to do a lot of things. So I definitely don't see him going in the first 2 rounds. Again, maybe some teams see something in him. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Sam Ehlinger, from Texas, because they play the same kind of style of football. And look how that turned out. So again, I'm not sold on Bo Nix. Someone's going to take a chance on him, obviously, because of what he's done. But again, and that is my quarterback rankings for the 2024 NFL draft. And before we get into our next topic, first and foremost, I want to talk about Matthew Slater. Huge shout out. Congrats on retirement. 10 times Pro Bowler. Obviously played his entire career in New England. What a great special teams career. Was definitely a leader of that locker room for the time he was there, and it's great to see him show him some love, give him some praise. He's been a long veteran in the NFL this year. But Listen, another thing I want to talk about is just before we get into the keep going on is just that the Jimmy G just got suspended for PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, obviously. And this guy, whatever he was taking, clearly was not working because, I mean, this dude got suspended for PEDs and he was worse than he just got worse. So whatever they were shooting him up with clearly was not working, so he definitely needs to get a new plug or something like that because whatever he was taking was not it, bro. They was definitely finessing him, overpaying him and things like that. But building off of what we were just discussing of the top 5, top 8 quarterback rankings for this 2024 upcoming NFL draft, I want to discuss the number 1 overall pick and the number 2 overall pick. All right. I mean, this is everything for the two franchises. The Chicago Bears got number 1 and they got a quarterback in Justin Fields, right? Listen, you get head coach Matt Eberflus. I mean, he's on his last leg. He's on the hot seat. You have to perform. You've seen the team come around, right? You have 2 picks in the first 10 and then the first 9. Right, I mean the top 5 rushing offense with Justin Fields. Key free agents going into this upcoming year. You got Jalen Johnson, Dante Foreman, Eddie Jackson, Yannick Ngakoue, and so it'll be interesting to see who you bring in. I think Jalen Johnson is a long-term cornerback you have to sign. I mean, if he becomes a free agent, that's one of those guys I'm gonna be looking to for my Las Vegas Raiders to come get because I think we should have some depth there, and that's a good talent. Jalen Johnson has been a phenomenal talent. Again, but I mean, with this number 1 overall pick, listen, it is if the Chicago Bears decide to not draft a better quarterback and take a chance on a number 1 overall pick caliber quarterback, and keeping Justin Fields, I mean, it will be looked at as one of the worst decisions in a very, very long time. Because listen, you have an opportunity to get 3, possible quarterbacks of the future in Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. Like, you have 3 chances to hit on one. All right, and we know the history of the Chicago Bears. We know the Mitchell Trubisky over Carson Wentz. I mean, we've seen their previous history. We've known what they're known for, and how the Chicago Bears work. Right, we know how they've been hated on. We know how their quarterback play has been in the past 20 years. But again, you have a chance. You have a 33% chance to hit. All right. And you have a 33% chance to hit on 1 of 3. And if you're not going to take Caleb Williams, if the Commanders give you something that's just remarkable and you want to go that route, go ahead. Do what you got to do. But again, you need to hit on a quarterback, and this is a quarterback-driven league. You know what I'm saying? We've heard Colin Cowherd say it countless times again and again and again. It's a quarterback-driven league. Once you find a quarterback, you build around that quarterback, and your team becomes all of a sudden not a good team and a contending team. Start competing for some playoff wins and some postseason success. But if you go down here and you explain to your fan base you skipped on not 1 but 2 generational talents in this league for Justin Fields, I mean, it will just make your franchise look more poverty than it already has. And so again, I think it's a no-brainer. You take a quarterback with this pick, whether it's Caleb Williams, whether it's Jaden Daniels, you take someone, or Drake May, whoever you feel is going to, fit your role and do what you got to do, whoever you like most, do it. And then with the number 2 pick, I mean, listen, head coach Dan Quinn comes into this new offense. I mean, this new team, he's a defensive-minded head coach, so he's supposed to take care of that defense. Obviously, Montez Sweat, I mean, you just drafted a cornerback this previous year, who you've seen some flashes from. But, I mean, some key free agents going into this offseason, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Kendall Fuller, and Jacoby Brissett. Again, I mean, there's more free agent lists on there, but these are the most important ones. Again, Curtis Samuel, you do have you have Terry McLaurin on contract still. You have Jahan Dotson, who I think has potential to be a great receiver in this league, and he's still on his rookie contract. Again, get him a quarterback, get Terry McLaurin a quarterback, and let them flourish. And then Curtis Samuel's a guy I think you can let walk. I mean, again, I still think you're in a good position. You can maybe get first 2 picks, get a quarterback, then you come back in the second round, get a receiver, something like that. There's going to be options on the table for this Commanders team to make some moves and to improve and to fill some of these gaps. But I mean, listen, it's no secret that Caleb Williams wants to be a Washington Commander. He wants to go play for Washington. He's from DC. He's a DC boy. He has so much, belief and love for the city of DC. He talks about it all the time, how he wants to be there. That's where he wants to be. He wants to go home. He wants to play in front of his home crowd and things like that. So again, I mean, what would a potential trade package going up for the number 1 overall pick mean, right? I mean, listen, the Panthers traded up to number 1 and they had to give up 2 first-round picks and DJ Moore, right? So it will definitely be interesting to see what happens going forward. I mean, because Caleb Williams, we all know, is generational. So maybe they ask for a bit more. Maybe they ask for some more draft compensation, maybe another player. I mean, I don't really know what the trade talks would look like, but what I do know is sacrificing a couple picks for the future to get someone like Caleb Williams is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, right? And again, we've seen this team compete with Taylor Heineke as their quarterback, for Christ's sakes. You know what I'm saying? So get this. We've seen for 2 years these guys compete and almost make the playoffs 2 years in a row based off Taylor Heineke, and that run game, you know what I'm saying? And controlling the time of possession and a solid defense. And now you're telling me you have the opportunity to go put Caleb Williams in that, right? So, I mean, they do have a lot to deal with, and obviously, boom, and things to figure out again, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless going forward. So today we're going to be breaking down basically the NFL offseason and discussing some of these key free agents and key pieces to be on the move for this upcoming 2024-2025 season, right? And at the top of the list, listen, obviously Chris Jones. Chris Jones will be a pending free agent. He will obviously be requesting a lot of money, a max contract as for what he can get paid for that being that good at defensive tackle, being one of the best D tackles in the league. But listen, Chris Jones, we already know what he means to this Kansas City defense. Chris Jones has proved his worth in and out, and year in and year out, week in and week out, right? He has been there. He has shown up in the biggest of games. He has 3 Super Bowls already, right? He has carried this Kansas City defense before they're any good. He is the backbone to this defense, right? And if you take out a key piece like that in this Kansas City defense, I mean, there's definitely going to be question marks and concerns raised for the Kansas City team currently trying to go for a three-peat, right? So there will be moves, there will be questions to be asked, and there will be things needed to be answered, right? So it will be definitely interesting to keep forward to see what moves he will make and who he'll be targeted by, right? And I've seen some conversations about him complimenting the facilities in Vegas and what Vegas could offer and how nice Vegas is for him, right? And listen, with how far and how much he's done in his career and where he's at with his age, he obviously is okay with just taking a big payday and maybe dropping down the Super Bowl contending tier to boom, or just winning games. I'm having fun, playing out my career, stat padding, and just making myself the best player I could possibly be, right? Okay. So you've heard him in conversations with Las Vegas. You understand that the numbers they want, the numbers he wants, and the numbers he's been received have not matched what he wants. And so there's obviously mixed communication on getting a deal done in Kansas City. But a place that I did hear was Chris Jones going to the Houston Texans, right? They have cap space. They have a young team, quarterback on a rookie contract for another 4 years, right? You have young talent. Tank Dell will be coming back. Nico Collins will still be there. You'll have Jimmy Ward. You'll have Will Anderson Jr., right? You could easily put him into a position like that, add to an already obviously playoff caliber team, right? We just seen them get their first playoff win last year, blowing out the Browns. But if you add Chris Jones to a team like this, to the Houston Texans, it just adds a whole new level to this defense, right? They were already a solid defense last year. You add a piece like Chris Jones, a veteran piece who can lead the locker room, who could lock in on defense and help and not only get after the quarterback but stuff the run, right? We've seen how effective and how great he's been, and put him with a defensive-minded head coach in DeMeco Ryans. I mean, I think this would be an absolute game wrecker for what they want and what they're trying to do for this young team, right? And you get 4 more years out of them, right? And the numbers I'm looking at and I'm hearing about is 4 years for 122, which, I mean, is well-deserved for Chris Jones. And then you get into the second biggest free agent this offseason is going to be Josh Allen, edge rusher from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, there's questions whether it's going to be franchise tagged, and or if he's going to get signed by another team. But again, I do think Josh Allen is in a position to I don't know if he's going to get extended, because we know how teams are with defensive ends and pass rushers in specific. We've seen the whole Brian Burns situation on he was trying to sit out and get paid. They didn't want to pay him, and now he's on the same position as Josh Allen, is whether he's going to get franchise tagged or is he going to get extended or traded, or, he's in all these discussions. But Josh Allen has been a phenomenal player for this team, right? And I've heard some conversations about possibly Josh Allen being a guy that Dan Quinn could possibly go for in Washington, right? Add a elite edge rusher, sign him to some money. You just traded Chase Young, right? You have Montez Sweat still for another year or so on that contract. So, I mean, this would be a great addition for wherever he can possibly go. I mean, listen, if the Raiders are looking, we could use another edge rusher, right? Malcolm Koonce came off in that second half of the season. Yes, we just drafted Tyree Wilson, so we probably won't do it for the reasons to let him develop. And hopefully we get more from Malcolm Koonce going forward. But again, another good pickup. I mean, crucial wherever he may possibly go, right? And then you have Brian Burns, who was, again, like I said, was in the same situation as Josh Allen last year. He wanted to get a franchise. He wanted to get an extension. The Panthers didn't want to extend him. He was going to sit out. He ended up playing. He had an okay year to his standards, but I mean, the year before, he was elite, one of the best pass rushers in the league. He is definitely worthy of an extension. It just all comes down to what will happen, right? And I've heard some conversations about maybe Brian Burns going to the Chiefs, adding an elite edge rusher in there. You'll have some cap space to move somebody, in case you didn't want to invest in Chris Jones. I've heard him in a place like Cincinnati, but you add to that defense, you get another elite edge rusher and just keep building around this core of this defense, right? So he'll definitely be interesting to see where he goes going forward. And I just think, you have three elite defensive players on the market this year, all in the same category in the same year. Two could possibly be franchise tagged, so it will be interesting to see how that goes for Josh Allen and Brian Burns. But again, Chris Jones, with what he's going to do to your defense, it's just going to be a great addition regardless, right? And one of the biggest names I wanted to talk about is Kirk Cousins. Listen, Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles tear. We understand the injuries and how that could hurt his value, and teams possibly don't want to go paying him a lot of money, not just because they're not sure of what you're going to get back in for Kirk Cousins, right? But again, he is a phenomenal QB. Okay, let me rephrase. He is a good QB. He definitely has his pros and his cons, right? One of my biggest cons with him is the fact that he does not perform well on primetime games. But again, I think this is an interesting position for Kirk Cousins to be. I've heard his name float around in Atlanta, right? Listen, you put him into a young team like that, a young offense, right? You have the cap space to do it. You have a defensive-minded team. You have Calais Campbell. You have Jesse Bates, right, who just had an all-pro caliber year at free safety this last year, right? You have Bijan Robinson. You have Tyler Algier. You have Kyle Pitts. You have Drake London, who, again, I am drooling from the mouth, waiting for him to have a phenomenal year and him get a quarterback that's going to throw him the ball, right? But you put him into this team who this could possibly become a scary team, a very good, young, scary team, right? You'll have a quarterback who's more than capable of throwing the ball, and you'll give him two running backs for a 1-2 punch that will just make his life easier, and something he hasn't had in a very long time. Yes, he always had Dalvin Cook, but again, having a 1-2 punch is obviously very nice. Two different types of backs. And he's never had a 1-2 punch like this, right? And we know how effective Bijan Robinson can be and how good Tyler Algier can be coming off and getting that running back 2 spot. Again, and then you add the likes of Drake London and Kyle Pitts, two people who we have yet to see the potential that we've thought about, and we want to see more of them. And what better way to do it than go get a guy like Kirk Cousins, who can transform your offense into a very, respectable offense, right? Kirk Cousins is a more than respectable quarterback. What he was doing for the Vikings this last year during their struggles was remarkable, right? And I'm not going to say he's a top 8 quarterback or anything like that, but he played phenomenal this last year. And I think he deserves some respect for what he can do for a team and being a floor raiser, right? And he'll just be a great addition for this team and what they need right now with a new head coach. But again, Kirk Cousins, And this goes back to my Las Vegas Raiders, right? We're sitting in a situation where we have no quarterback. We have no guaranteed quarterback. I mean, it's Aiden O'Connell, and then we have no way, I just forgot my bro's name. I can't even. Desmond Ridder, excuse me. Desmond Ridder, right? We're sitting here. One team has Desmond Ridder, one team has Aiden O'Connell. We know they are not game-changing quarterbacks. We know they are not elite-level quarterbacks. We know they are bottom-tier quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Even if they have moments and they show you something, they are still going to be bottom 15 quarterbacks, bottom 10 quarterbacks in the league, and that is okay. It's just what they are. So someone like Kirk Cousins going into Vegas. You know what I'm saying? If for whatever reason, let's just say Josh Jacobs doesn't come back, that's just more cap space to go towards paying a quarterback, right? Because if the Las Vegas Raiders are not going to trade up and go get a quarterback like the likes of Jaden Daniels or Drake May or whoever the hell it may be, right? Michael Penix, whoever, right? If we are not going to go draft up and get a QB, we better sign a QB, right? And it's very limited options this year, right? And I'm tired of sitting here and getting mediocre quarterback play. Let's just go out here and get someone because Kirk Cousins, he has his moments. Obviously, everyone has bad games and things like that. But Kirk Cousins, you know what you're going to get. He's been consistent his entire career. He's going to go in there and again, floor raiser. He's going to raise the floor. You give Davante Adams a good quarterback. You give Jacoby Myers a good quarterback, right? First time Jacoby Myers who have respectable quarterback play. I mean, listen, this team will just be unworldly. And we know how Kirk Cousins like Tyler Hawkinson, and now he gets someone like, Michael Mayer, right? Who can have a great year 2 for him. Again, it will definitely be interesting to see. I mean, we're not close to pushing the cap. We will definitely have to make space if we made a move like this, but I think this would be a great move if possible. I mean, there's no other quarterbacks on the market. I mean, listen, Baker Mayfield, he's staying in Tampa. If Tampa Bay lets him walk, that's a conversation for a different day, but he better stay in Tampa, right? Boom. Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Tannehill, Gardner Minshew. I mean, there's just no quarterbacks on the free agent market right now that's going to go out here and elevate a team or be a game changer to a team. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be interesting. Obviously, and then Justin Fields is in the conversation for being traded from the Chicago Bears. I've heard some talks about, there's only 1 or 2 teams that could possibly be asking for Justin Fields, and that is the Atlanta Falcons or the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think are 2 great spots for where Justin Fields can really play and go get some PT and develop. Again, if the Atlanta Falcons decide to go the Justin Fields route, which would be a lot cheaper, would be a 3rd round pick, maybe 4th, something like that, 3rd or 5th, 4th and 5th, something like that. And then you have a chance to have a college style offense, a running quarterback who just ran for 1,000 yards, a rookie of the year caliber running back. And then you have Tyler Algier and Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I mean, that offense would be very young, very explosive, and very fun to watch, truly, if they had Justin Fields at the helm. But again, or the Pittsburgh Steelers, a defensive-minded team who wants to run the ball, and now you give him a quarterback who's dual-threat quarterback who've seen what he's done with his feet. And if he could just go did what he did in Chicago, and with his feet and with the team around him, with Najee Harris and Jace Warren, it would be interesting to see, of course. I mean, it definitely puts a bit of a ceiling on them if he cannot develop into a decent passer, right? So it'll be interesting to see what it is going forward. And I know everybody is questioning, me always talking about my Las Vegas Raiders, right? But listen, there is so much good talent in this free agent class, in this free agent market right now, that it's just, there's so many moves that we could possibly make, right? If we go the route of drafting a rookie QB, which would save us a lot of cap space. I mean, we're looking at names here of players that can come in and instantly elevate our team from where we already are, right? The likes of, you have T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley. I mean, these are all guys going to be free agents this year, right? Calvin Ridley, a guy who I think very highly of. T. Higgins, another guy I think very, very highly of. I don't think we'd be able to obviously pay T. Higgins because of what we already paid Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, obviously, right? But again, that's just names to be aware of. Darnell Mooney, a guy right here who, I mean, right here it says he's going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he's a great addition. I think he's so elite of a route runner and just so nasty, so fast, just knows how to eat up space when he's running routes, but he doesn't get enough help and chances to perform, right? His rookie year was phenomenal for Darnell Mooney, but he has not gotten a chance to really, go crazy and put up these good numbers. And I think in a team like us, not only would he be cheap, he's a Trey Tucker-like player, just more developed than Trey Tucker. And Trey Tucker, we've seen how he's done some good stuff for us, right? And I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders will have up to $38 million in free cap this upcoming season, right? Which again opens the door for someone like Kirk Cousins, right? You don't have to trade for nobody. You go get Kirk Cousins, make it work, boom, right? And again, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to make some moves here if we just don't decide to get up a QB, right? Because, I mean, there are some other great players on this market, but again, they will be very expensive, right? If we just, for whatever reason, go the rookie quarterback route, trade up for somebody, right? Boom. We'll have that $37 million cap space. We have the likes of Christian Wilkins, Leonard Williams, DJ Reader, all being free agents. Justin Mabuke, who, again, another free agent, right? Daniel Hunter, Davion Clowney, Levante David, Patrick Queen, Bobby Wagner, Devin White. I mean, I just named four cornerback linebackers who you can get for cheap. I mean, they're getting there on age. Patrick Queen would obviously desire a 4-year deal. But again, I mean, you have some Devin White, a young talent who can get you Patrick Queen, another young talent, right? Who we were very poor in our linebacker core last year, right? And so you can add another addition at linebacker, and I think it would be a great fit. I mean, you could take any four of those guys, and I would be happy. Getting Levante David for 1 year vet, 4-year deal, like that would be great for me, right? Or if we want to go the DB route, we want to add some secondary, we want to, keep building our secondary. We have, Meek Robinson's going to become an upcoming free agent, a guy who I think very highly of again. I think he's done great this year, especially being undersized. Jalen Johnson, L'Jarius Sneed, right? Kenny Moore II. 3 great cornerbacks who I think I would be okay with paying all 3 of them, right? Jalen Johnson, L'Jarius Sneed, Kenny Moore, all of them. I think if I had to pick out of the 3, I would definitely take L'Jarius Sneed, but the Chiefs could possibly let him go just because how young their team is and the contracts they're going to have to pay going forward. So again, that's another option. But again, I mean, there's just so many. Antoine Winfield Jr. just made an All-Pros, going to be a free agent. Darnell Savage, CJ Gardner-Johnson. I mean, listen, these guys are out here. They're going to be available, and we have opportunity to build on our team, to keep, improving our team and actually make her run for something this year. But we got to do it at the end of the day. But obviously the first question's got to be for us to get a quarterback. And again, we have the cap now. We have $37 million in cap space to sign, to make some moves and to make something happen. And that's screaming Kirk Cousins. Go get Kirk Cousins. Sign him to a 2-year deal, right? The numbers I was looking at was 2-year, $82 million, so somewhere around $40 million a year, right? And then you can, you make it work. You don't sign some couple players. You restructure a couple contracts, and you could make it work. You know what I'm saying? And then you build through the draft. You fill in the holes through the draft, right? So again, there's a lot of expectations. I mean, listen, it's been too long, and it's been 2 years since we made the playoffs, but. Again, obviously, we know the struggles of the Raiders franchise in the past. I've been watching this for 21 years, and it's time for for us to make some splash and go do something. And I think Kirk Cousins can be the guy for us, or for whatever reason, if Baker Mayfield doesn't end up staying back in Tampa, again, that's another guy who I would take a chance on for a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, whatever. I mean, I think there's enough good in Baker Mayfield to win some games. I'm not saying we're going to go out there and win a fucking Super Bowl, but what we need right now is just to compete. You know what I'm saying? We need to compete for some years to come. Even if there is a ceiling, we need to compete. We just need to make it into our culture of competing at this damn point, right? So again, there will be a lot of questions to be answered going forward. Obviously, I am a big Josh Jacobs fan. I think we pay him what he wants, a 3-year deal, similar to a Nick Chubb contract, to that Derrick Henry contract. Those type of guys. I mean, they got their money that way, 3-year deals, which I think was phenomenal. Nick Chubb signed one obviously before towards ACL, and I think giving another 3-year deal for for Josh Jacobs would be great. I mean, you keep him around. You already have, again, Zamir White, who I said has been a phenomenal backup, and you've finally seen his capabilities when Josh Jacobs sat out the last 3 games. But there's also some other notable names on the market. You have Saquon Barkley, right? Tony Pollard. I'm not a fan of Tony Pollard, so you know what? Forget I even said that. Derrick Henry, again, who he's been talked about to go to Baltimore with, I mean, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards becoming free agents after this upcoming year, right? So they will have the room to sign somebody. And if they put Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the same backfield, that is absolutely fucking scary. Excuse my language. But that would be absolutely ridiculous. Oh my goodness. But again, Austin Eckler, J.K. Dobbins. Guys, I mean, yes, J.K. Dobbins is very injury prone, but there are pieces out there capable of performing. So you just got to pick up the right guys. DeAndre Swift, another guy who I'm a big fan of. I think he's more than capable of running the ball. Putting Zamir White and DeAndre Swift together, the Georgia brothers, the Georgia backfield. I mean, that would be kind of funny. That would be kind of, you know what I'm saying. But again, there's a lot of moves to be made. Listen, and before I end this and we get into the NBA discussions, I just want to talk about some of these wide receiver free agents. I mean, listen, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley. I mean, Gabe Davis, Rashid Shaheed are all guys capable of making plays on a winning team, right? Mike Evans, a guy who has been the definition of Mr. Consistent to my eyes, right? You look at him and you really think that is he's going to make you plays. He's a winning player. He wants to win, right? He obviously sacrificed that in his career being so loyal to the team that drafted him, but he was nothing less than remarkable for this franchise, and I would not be mad if he goes out there and goes chases another ring and or competing opportunity, you know, the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs, even someone who needs receivers. You have the opportunity to get someone like T. Higgins, Mike Evans, you know, in the same free agent signings, right? Again, it will be definitely interesting to go forward. I've heard both of those names in the Kansas City discussions and in the Carolina Panthers discussions. Again, I mean, if you pair up T. Higgins or Mike Evans with Bryce Young, that's a very dynamic duo. You have another receiver who you can rely on other than Adam Thielen, right? And it's a step in the right direction for the Carolina Panthers or for the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs, you know, you need a weapon. You're more than likely going to let L'Jarius Sneed walk, right? You didn't pay Tyreek Hill this money, so now you have an opportunity to pay someone some money to give you some production, and I think that'd be a great fit for either of those guys to go out there and try to compete. And then again, I mean, the likes of Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, you know, what's one team that needs a running back so very, very bad is the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, Tony Pollard, they were all on his sack this entire year, these last 2 years. Tony Pollard is the truth. Tony Pollard is that guy. Tony Pollard is this. Tony Pollard is that. All right, no, he's not. He never was that. He never was. He benefited from being around Zeke, right? Okay, so now you have so much opportunities to go out here and get a running back in the likes of Saquon, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, however you want to do, whatever they decide to do. But with that being said, let me know who do you think is the most important free agent signing for your team as of right now? And with that being said, I want to get into the NBA All-Star Game discussion. Listen, I mean, it was a great weekend. I mean, it was Indy and Indiana, right? You had the hometown crew going for all their Indiana players. Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin obviously went in there and won the skills competition, which again was great to see. I mean, I know the fans loved it. They've been waiting for something like this for a long time. Mixed with the fact that Tyrese Halliburton was an NBA All-Star. Again, it's great to see. I mean, it's great to see all these young players go out there and do their things and develop over the last 4 to 5 years of their career, you know. But, I mean, one of the biggest issues with this NBA All-Star Game is obviously the lack of competitiveness in the game, right? And you heard Anthony Edwards discuss this after the game was over, after the All-Star Game was over. He said, I mean, it is All-Star break. You know what I'm saying? He's in All-Star break. He doesn't want to come out here and compete with nobody and go out here and play full-time. It is his time to rest and be on his break. You know what I'm saying? So seeing people like that and just, I mean, the way the game goes, it's just unacceptable. And you see certain guys try to compete in those games, make them a little competitive, show that he is trying to compete. The likes of Giannis talks about it. He wants to compete every time he gets on the floor, and you've seen that from him. He goes out there and tries to compete, but you can only do so much when you're the only guy out there trying to compete and make plays and really put in some effort. And then I've heard some people talk about, how do you get these guys to lock in and buy in on making an entertaining, a bit of a competitive basketball game? You know what I'm saying? And then you didn't talk about incentives. Do they need money? And then all these all-stars, NBA all-stars, they're already getting paid max contracts, 20, they're already making a lot of money. They're not worried about $150,000, $200,000, whatever you were trying to do to incentivize them, right? So again, I mean, that is great to see. I mean, that at least we're discussing it, that the talks of trying to improve the game is in discussion, and it's in, and everyone's worried about it, because again, I mean, back when Kobe and MJ and all these guys used to play, sure, it wasn't like you're going for a trying to win a ring, but you were out there competing. Kobe Bryant said he would go out there and compete against the best in the East, right? He said he wanted to go see what they were about, and he proved that, right? But I mean, obviously, the league has gone a very different direction from how hardcore stuff used to be, right? It has definitely gotten softer and just allowed these players to kind of do whatever they like, to be honest, but again, and I heard a couple people discuss this. I mean, listen, we see how competitive these guys get in the Rico Hines runs and the offseason runs when they go meet up somewhere and they're all running 5v5, right? And they're getting some work in, they're working on their game, and they're improving, but they're also competing, right? Seeing how much better your opposing players got and your teammates got, right? So that's your chance to go out there and put on display. And I mean, that's the best way to put it. You know what I'm saying? And those Rico Hines runs, they're out there, they're competing, trying to show who's gotten better, who's improving, who's developed a bigger bag, who's working on their game and who's not. And you can tell, and it's also a competitive edge in it. I mean, some of those guys get a little crazy, they'll argue a little bit, argue on a couple calls, things like that. But we just need to bring that type of atmosphere into the All-Star game, because again, you don't got to go out here and kill each other, but it should definitely be an experience of where you're trying to assert dominance and set yourself up as the best player in basketball, one of the best players at your position or in the league. And obviously, we definitely got to fine-tune some things to make sure that works out, So it'll be interesting to see. Again, I mean, I heard Kenny Beecham discuss to Jason Tatum about how to improve the All-Star game, and I didn't listen to it all the way through, so I didn't really, get the chance to break it down. But I mean, that would be a good listen to. I'm definitely going to be listening to it later, because again, I'm trying to figure out why these games aren't so, and I get it. The NFL is kind of the same way. I mean, they are competing in a way, but they're not. And you get defensive guys playing offense and offense guys playing defense, and running backs kicking extra points, and it's a whole fun in games and things like that. So, and I get it, but so we'll definitely have to see what happens going forward. But one of the biggest things I want to talk about was obviously Sabrina versus Curry. Sabrina versus Steph in the 3-point shootout. I mean, that contest was absolutely lights out. You know what I'm saying? And listen, I'm not gonna lie, Sabrina went out there and was absolutely hooping. And for a second, I thought it was gonna get scary for Steph Curry. And then it looked like fatigue hit in the last 2 racks. And then obviously she missed more than she made in the last 2 racks, which could have been crazy because I mean, Curry didn't have the greatest 3-point shootout. You know what I'm saying? He ended up with 28, 29. So obviously Curry asserted his dominance, but again, it could have been very scary for Curry at a moment. I remember looking back and I was like, no way she goes out here and gets 30. You know what I'm saying? Because that was definitely crazy, because she started making some and it was just like, oh wow. And but again, it was a great to see. I mean, you had a lot of WNBA stars out there this past weekend, enjoying the time, enjoying being out there, supporting obviously Sabrina, and putting off the WNBA. But she definitely put on a masterclass. I mean, listen, she outperformed. She would have tied for all the boys, or excuse me, all the men who ended up tying for second in the first heat, which was 26. I think 6 people died for 26 after Sabrina did it as well. So I mean, it was a great event. I mean, again, hoping to improve and build on some things for the NBA for the sake of just the fan base and getting some more entertaining basketball during the All-Star games for all sports, really. But with that being said, I want to thank y'all for showing some support. Thank y'all for showing me some love. And I was a bit kind of all over the place in today's episode, mainly just because, I mean, there's just so much to discuss. So many players out here that could really, be a game changer to some teams. So with that being said, I'm going to next start from week to week, from episode to episode, start breaking down one or two teams in each video and just discussing what moves they can make to, what they can do to improve their team. Excuse me, I'm stuttering at the very end all of a sudden. So I will be breaking down some of your teams. Hopefully it's your favorite team in the next episode. So maybe you could drop in the comments and let me know what y'all think. With that being said, later.